Hi everyone, I am Alvin Huit and I'm presenting the environmental history. So the topics are economic history, disasters, diseases, and epidemics, environmental degradation. Introduction. The World Risk Index in 2017 named Philippines among the top three countries with the highest hazard risk as it experienced an average of 20 typhoons and 100 to 150 earthquakes every year. As a country in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the Pacific Typhoon Belt, natural hazards have been part of the Philippine historical development as a nation. So these are the disasters and hazards that occur in the Philippines. So the Taal volcano eruption and the COVID-19 pandemic. Disasters. So disasters are serious disruptions to the function of a community that exceeds its capacity to cope using its own resources. Disasters can be caused by a natural, man-made, and technological hazards, as well as various factors that influence the exposure and vulnerability of community. So example of these are earthquake, flood, tropical cyclone, wildfire, tsunami, tornado, landslide, and many more. Hazard. Any phenomenon that has the potential to destroy life and property. A hazard becomes a disaster when this harm potential has been fulfilled. So examples of hazards. Wet floors, electrical cords, crossing walkways, in the work itself, like roofing or climbing ladders. And other examples of hazards include chemicals, noise, and biological hazards like viruses and bacteria. So Western scholars argue that there are areas of the world that are more prone to disasters countries who just happen to unluckily situated in the Ring of Fire or Typhoon Belt. They fall to consider that a society vulnerability to hazard is not solely dependent on natural forces, and that preventing disasters is a matter of improved scientific prediction, engineering preparedness, and the administration management of hazard. The result of hazards unmitigated risk could be reduced through adequate knowledge, preparedness, and risk reduction. In short, when disasters happen in the Philippines, it is not because we unluckily located in the place where hazards usually occur. Disasters happen in the Philippines because despite the reality of natural hazards occurrences, Filipinos are unprepared to mitigate hazard risk. Because despite the reality of natural hazards occurrence, Filipinos are unprepared to mitigate hazard risk. Earthquakes occur at an average of 5 times a day. We have 220 volcanoes, around 25 of which are classified as active, with 3 most active, Mayon in Albay, Taal in Batangas, and Canlaon in Negros, erupting 98 between 1572 and 1992, 41 of which were described destructive. Typhoons usually regularly sweep the islands from the Pacific Ocean, especially from June to November, averaging 20 to 30 a year, and with a wind speeds more than 200 kilometers per hour. And secondary hazard. Secondary hazard also pose disaster threats. Earthquakes cause soil liquefaction and trigger landslide. Landslides are more frequent, especially in the more mountainous provinces of the country. Hazards associated eruptions are lava flows and lahar. Lahar can immediately destroy and bury anything on its path, or heavy rains could set off lahar deposits into the slopes to flow to the low-lying areas. Typhoons also set off hazards such as landslide, lahar flows, and the more frequent flooding of lowland areas. So, for example, earthquakes. Earthquakes can cause tsunamis and can cause flooding in coastal area. And hurricane and typhoons can cause flooding, landslide, and storm surges. And also wildfires. Wildfires can cause mudslides and flooding, and also air pollution. So records of disasters in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period before the 19th are somewhat scant, resulting in a very uneven disasters in the archipelago. Usually just focus Manila and Central Luzon, less on the rest. In the Visayas and close to more in Mindanao. Greg Van Koff is an Western historian with interest in the role of disasters in human societies, resources and risk management, the environmental consequences of modern conflict, human-animal relations, and the development of colonial science. According to a Spanish account, the year 1641 in particular was a devastating year, marked by an earthquakes, storms, and the caving of high mountains, and the eruption of three volcanoes. 1754, the eruption of Taal volcano, resulting in days of intense darkness and the destruction of trees and towns, the flooding of Lake Bombon. 1762, a stir typhoon damaged British ships on their way to Manila, drowned to capture which many of their crews. In 1895, Manila Observatory was established. In 1881 to 1889, more advanced measuring devices was used. So the Midnight Killer, one of the most damaging earthquakes rated in history happened in the Moro Gulf in 1976. An 8.0 magnitude earthquake occurred near Sulu in Mindanao, triggering 4 to 5 meter, 13 to 15 feet height tsunamis, killing at least 5,000 and rendering 90,000 people homeless. Volcanic eruptions are not as frequent as earthquakes, but when they happen, they cause enormous damage, especially the explosion of Mayon and Taal. 12 volcanoes have been active during historical times, but this is not a good indication of volcanic activity, as shown by the 91 eruption of Mount Pinatubo, which before this catastrophic event was quiet for 600 years. Historical data shows there is often a correlation between earthquakes and volcanic eruptions as increased seismic activity occurs before and after eruption. So this is Mayon volcano and Taal volcano that cause violent eruption. And also Hibok-Hibok, Bulusan, and Canlaon. So tropical cyclones, typhoons, and their phenomena or secondary hazards such as landslide, storm surges, and floods are far more destructive than earthquakes and volcanic eruptions combined. Tropical cyclones, the ordinary variety responsible for a rainfall that makes lands conducive for agriculture. Typhoon, a much more destructive and natural calamity. Around 25% of the world's tropical cyclones and typhoons occur in the Philippine area of responsibility. In the Filipino language, we do not make a distinction between tropical cyclones and typhoons, since we use a singular term, Wagyu or Bagyo. Historical record shows that an average event lasted 4 to 6 days in the Shanghai and Japan, while in the Philippines it is a day longer. So seasonality can also be identified while tropical cyclones and typhoons happen anytime. Can more frequently between July and November, or what we refer to as the rainy season. In 397 tropical cyclones recorded between 1880 and 1898 took place in those 5 months, and only 9 between January and March. Experts today note that due to climate change, the strength, frequency, and seasonality of tropical cyclones are changing. Typhoon Yolanda, Halayan International, one of the strongest typhoons to hit the Philippines, made landfall on November 13, took 8 days to dissipate, and killed more than 6,000 people, while more than 1,000 were declared missing. It caused damage accounting to more than 100 billion pesos. Stronger typhoons were recorded and make landfall in the Philippines more recently, such as Typhoon Rolly, with international name Gori, and 2020, and Typhoon Ferdinand with international name Mirante in 2016. So hazards are indeed a reality in the country. It is not going to change anytime soon. What should change is as well our government handle disasters, preparedness and disaster risk reduction management. There is no reason for Filipinos to suffer disasters due to this hazard if the necessary preparation is done through sound policy informed by science and the country's historical. Next topic is epidemics, is diseases and epidemics. So the shift from hunter-gatherers to agrarian societies has favored the spread of infectious diseases in the human population. Expanded trades between communities have increased interaction between humans and animals and facilitated transmission of zoonotic pathogens. Thereafter, expanded cities, extended trade territories, increased travels, as well as effects on ecosystem due to increased human population raised the emergence and spread of infectious diseases, leading to higher risk for outbreaks. Epidemics and even pandemics. The term endemic, outbreak, and epidemic and pandemic relate to the occurrence of health condition compared to its predicted rate as well as to its spread geographic areas. An endemic condition occurs at predictable rate among population. An outbreak corresponds to an unpredictable increase in the number of people presenting a health condition or in the occurrence cases in a new area. An epidemic is an outbreak that spreads to larger geographic areas. Pandemic is an epidemic that spreads globally. So, plague. Plague is caused by the flea-borne bacteria Riccia pistis that is responsible for at least three human plague pandemics: the plague of Justinian, the Black Death, and the third plague. Seeds in the Gilbertus sulfur. Whiteface is a gram-negative, broad-shaped concavulous bacteria. Whiteface is a facultative anaerobic bacteria that is transmitted by fleas associated mainly to rodents and other mammalian hosts. Fleas acquire the bacteria by sucking blood from an infected rodent. Bacteria quickly multiply in the black alveolar canal in the gut of the fleas. The fleas transmit the bacteria to the new rodent host by regurgitating the clotted blood. Plaque manifests in three forms: septemic and pneumonic, depending on the route of infection. The bubonic form is the most common, results from the bite of the infected flea. Clinical manifestations include flu-like symptoms such as fever, chills, headache, body pains, weakness, vomiting, and nausea followed by painful swelling nodes. So these are the plaques that occur in the Philippines, in the human history. So what is epidemic? Epidemic is the unusual occurrence in the community or region of a disease, specific health-related behavior or other health-related events, clearly in excess of the expected occurrence. Objectives of epidemic investigation. Number one is magnitude of epidemic outbreak. Two is factors responsible. Three is cause, source of infection, modes of transmission. Four is recommendation to prevent recurrence. And also one, verifications of diagnosis. Two is confirmation of existence of epidemic. Three is defining population are at risk. Four is rapid search for all cases, characteristics. Five is data analysis. Six is experimentation of hypothesis. 7. Testing of hypothesis. 8. Evaluation of ecological factors. Number 9 is further investigation population at risk. And 10. Writing the report. And also, how we define a pandemic. A pandemic is an outbreak of disease that affects a large group, whole country, or worldwide. So what is the difference between epidemic and pandemic? Pandemic normally is used to indicate a far higher number of people affected than an epidemic. A pandemic also refers to a much larger region, both being affected in the most extreme cases. The entire global population would be affected by a pandemic, like the COVID-19 pandemic. What is the difference between epidemic and pandemic? It is not unusual for a new virus to spread worldwide because if people have not been exposed to the virus, their immune system are not ready to fight it off. This caused more people to become infected. Swine flu started in Mexico City, where it was proved to lead to epidemic proportion in North America. Now that the flu has been found in New Zealand, Israel, Scotland, and many other countries is a pandemic. Last topic is environmental degradation. Introduction. Environmental degradation is an issue of increasing concern for all of us. The deterioration of the environment through depletion of resources such as air, water, and soil, the destruction of ecosystem, and the extinction of wildlife. We only have one earth to work with. And if the environment is irreparably compromised, it could mean the end of human existence. And economic effect of environmental degradation. So water pollution, freshwater pollution by phosphorus and nitrogen. More money is spent on the treatment for water purifying. Productivity is affected, shortage of environmental resources decline, fisheries leading to irreversible compaction. Human health might be at the receiving end as a result of the environmental degradation. Areas exposed to toxic pollutants of any sort of pollution can cause respiratory problems like pneumonia, asthma. Millions of people are known to have died due to pollution. So the atmospheric changes. Ozone layer is responsible for protecting Earth from harmful ultraviolet rays. The presence of carbon in the ozone layer causes depletion. Biodiversity is important for maintaining balance of the ecosystem in the form of combating pollution, restoring nutrients, protecting water resources, and stabilizing climate. Loss of biodiversity. Direct economic value of reduction from species. The indirect economic value of benefit produced by species nutrient recycling and ecosystem. So the prevention measures. So follow the 3 R's and green transportation and also give back to the environment. So green transportation. If we all rode bikes instead of driving cars, we could combat population. Not only will the air be cleaner, we will choose green transportation, but over time we will also be in better shape. Giving back to the environment, plant trees for everyone tree that is down. Keeping our forests alive not only for ecosystem, but also retaining the home for wildlife system when the food chain is affected. Humans are also affected too. So we must plant trees and make use of recyclable materials and also avoid wasting materials or foods to avoid much usage of materials in the environment. And thank you. Thank you for watching.